Hi guys, it's Quinlin. Welcome back to my channel. So I'm excited. Today I'm bringing you a new kind of video. I was partly inspired by this TikTok that I saw and partly inspired, I think it's just a TikTok trend if I'm being completely honest. I don't know exactly who started it. And then my friend Nissy actually sent it to me, and thank you to Nissy, so video credits to her. And basically, I'm going to be talking about my core books. So if you've ever watched Inside Out, the movie, like the Pixar Disney movie, basically Riley, she has like these core memories, and those are like the ones that kind of like make up like her personality. She has like islands in her mind that kind of revolve around it, and like her main personality is like based on these core memories. And so I'm going to be talking about my core books. So I'm really excited about this. I'm pumped. So the first book that I would have to say is my core book. I'm gonna have 5 because I believe that's how many she had. How many core memories she had? I'm pretty sure it was 5. And then I'm gonna have a couple of honorable mentions because there are just some that like I don't want to not talk about, but like if I had to choose 5, I have like my main 5, and they're not quite core memory or like quite core books, but like they're close. So I can't exclude them. So the first has to be, you guys have not heard of this, it's not like a YA book or anything, but it's basically just called Tip, and I'll insert a picture of it. But it's basically, if you can tell from the picture, it's like an old book, and this is like the first book I ever read when I was like 3 years old, and my grandma taught me how to read. She had this series, it was Tip, and then like Tip and Mitt, and it's just like really simple words like tip roll over, Tip does this. And I think that has to be included in my core books just because like it was the book that taught me how to read, and that's what obviously like jump started everything. And so I think that was kind of like what a core book is essentially, like, so I think that's like very like much the essence of a core book. The next book that I would have to say, I'm not going to take it off just because it's a lot of hassle, but it is the Harry Potter series, which you can see right here. My lovely spines. I do love it. My grandma got it for me. Shout out to my grandma who taught me how to read and got me the Harry Potter series. Well, she didn't buy it for me the first time, but she got me this edition of the Harry Potter series. I'm pretty sure the first time I read the Harry Potter series, I got it from the library. Yeah. So basically, in terms of the Harry Potter series, like why it's a core book, I would say it's because it really jump-started my love for reading. Like, I'd loved reading before I read the Harry Potter series, but like I feel like the first book that I can really remember being like obsessed with was the Harry Potter series, and it also kind of jump-started me onto the Percy Jackson series because I remember being on like the 5th or 6th book, and my mom kind of staggered them, like she didn't let me read them all at once. And so I remember being like, well, what am I going to read when the Harry Potter series is over? And I kind of felt like those were the only books in the whole universe like that were good, and just like the other books that I'd read just didn't compare to the Harry Potter series. And I think it was just such an influential book in my childhood, and like really influenced like why I love to read and the books that I love to read today. And so I was very much like, what am I going to read after this? And that brings me to my next core book, which has to be the Percy Jackson series. I actually do own copies of the Percy Jackson series, but they're not with me. I think they're in a different room that's like completely messy and like everything. But the Percy Jackson series was super influential, especially in like my lower school, middle school years. I was convinced I was a demigod. My best friend and I like loved the series so much. And like I wanted to be a daughter of Zeus. I thought that was super cool. I wanted to fly. That was like my dream. And obviously I wanted to be one of the big 3 because, of course. But that again kind of really like jump started like my love of reading, and I think that's what kind of launched me really into all the other books that I love today. I think it kind of went Harry Potter, Percy Jackson, then I realized there was this whole world of like other books that I never really explored, and I got really into a lot of other books, and so that was kind of my jam, which was kind of cool. Okay, don't mock me for this one, please, but the next book that I would say is one of my core books would be Anna and the French Kiss by Stephanie Perkins. I remember going crazy after I finished this book. I was like on like a book high for like a whole weekend. I was like dressing really cute, I remember, and like I was like obsessed. This like I know this isn't like the best book, and like honestly looking back, Anna's kind of cringy and she's very much like not like other girls and stuff like that. But when I read it, it just like, I felt like it changed my life. Like it was so good. I was obsessed with it. Like I remember reading part of it and then being like hyperactive at school all day long, like waiting to come home and read it. I was just like so in love with this story, and I also think this kind of influences, like I would have to say Paris is one of my all-time favorite cities in like the whole world. And it's kind of silly because there are so many amazing cities to choose from, but like Paris has always had like a special place in my heart. Probably in part due to this book. I also visited there like twice and I loved it both times. I just feel like it's such a romantic, like magical place, and the history and the culture there is just like insane. And I know there are so many other cool cities, and I'm not saying that I'm not interested in visiting like every other like amazing city, but Paris just like has a special place in my heart. And I do think that like this helps me fall in love more with traveling and just like the romance, and it was just so magical and such like a fun time. I feel like I don't have like good concrete reasons, but like when I was like writing down and I was like, like what are my core books? I feel like they all just fell into place perfectly. I immediately just like had this list and this had to be on it, and I can't give you like concrete reasons like why this book made such an impact on me, but it honestly did. I just, so good, so good. The next core book and the final core book that I have is Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas, and I don't think this is a surprise if you've watched some of my like where I gushed about like House of Earth and Blood and how much I love Sarah J. Maas, but this again was like another jump starter into like the world of YA. I think I absolutely fell in love with this series. I connected so much with it. Heir of Fire kind of changed my life. I feel like I just like completely fell in love with this whole series and all of the characters. Aelin just holds like such a special place in my heart. I think like especially like the growth from like book 1 to like book 7 is like insane. Like there's so much change, and I feel like I grew up alongside of Aelin because I started reading this series in middle school and I didn't finish it until like high school when the last book came out. So I do feel like she's just been growing up with me and forming the person that I am today. And I am one of those people who will like steal personality traits from characters, so I do feel like I kind of tried to like be like sassy like Selena. I'm not really, but I just like, there's just something special about this series in my heart, and I think that's why it's like a core book for me. I think Heir of Fire was like the first time I felt like something really connected with me on like a mental health level, and then I just, it was just such a good series. It was just fun and engaging. This has got to be like one of my all-time favorite series. It just means so much to me, and honestly, like without Throne of Glass, I don't think I would have discovered, like had like all of these books, like besides like Harry Potter obviously. Like I feel like I discovered Throne of Glass and it like opened me up to like BookTube and all of that stuff, and so I really like learned about like all these different series, and I feel like I just, my mind is just like expanded so far beyond, and it's all thanks to like Throne of Glass, and I just love Throne of Glass so much. Yeah. Okay, and now are my 3 honorable mentions. First up is Hunger Games, which I don't have a copy of right now. I know my brother does, but I'm not really sure where it is. And Hunger Games just like, I think meant a lot to me because it was the best YA dystopian I read, and I do remember YA being like, dystopian being like a big deal, especially like in middle school. I think it fuels kind of like my individualism and skepticism when it comes to not necessarily like blindly trusting everything that like the government gives you. Kind of having a little bit of like your own kind of individuality is important, and like being separated. I think it's like on the vein of like 1984 and like Brave New World. I feel like it's just so important, and yeah, that's just how I feel. My next honorable mention is The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak, and I think the thing about this one is that like when I think of books that like meant a lot to me, this just like appears on the list because it didn't like change my life, but I feel like it did change my perspective. It was one of like the first kind of like historical fiction that I really got into. Like when I was kind of younger, I really hated historical fiction, and then I think it was honestly like 4 years ago now, or 3 years ago, that I read this book, and it just meant so much to me. I obviously cried. It was really sad. I think it did kind of show me a different perspective of like World War II, and I just felt like it was really meaningful, and the fact that it was told by death was just so interesting to me. I just thought it was just so unique and such like a treasure, a book that I'll treasure forever, and that I would highly recommend to anybody. And then my final kind of honorable mention is The Infernal Devices. Just not because I feel like these books meant so much to me, although I did end up getting really attached to the characters, and Clockwork Princess always makes me bawl, but like just because I feel like this recently, most recently when I reread the series, it honestly launched my love for historical fiction, and I do feel like that's going to be such an important genre to me going forward, so I feel like that's super important for me. Sorry, my cat is like pushing around stuff on the floor. And then I just felt like this kind of launched my love of like historical fiction, and so I just think that's super important to me, even though it didn't make like a huge impact on me personally. So those are my core books and my honorable mentions. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what your core books are down below. Choose like your top 5, and you can do honorable mentions too, of course, but I am really interested to see, because I do feel like your core books kind of say a lot about you as a person, and as you can tell, a lot of mine are like YA, so obviously I do think I need to kind of expand my taste, because I would have to say that I think the more classics I read, the more like they may become like a core book, because I do think a lot of them have like really intense and deep messages that are important. And so yeah, thank you for watching so much, and bye!